It's a question that's been discussed for multiple years now. And as days go by, the validity or momentum behind the question seems to be more and more possible, more and more likely. This question that almost seems impossible could happen. You could not draw it up in a story, or if you did, it would sound fake. And the question that is being asked, is being discussed, is the Aaron Rodgers following Brett Favre in his footsteps from Green Bay to New York to Minnesota. Because now the Minnesota Vikings could be in the running for Aaron Rodgers' services, because the New York Jets are not going to want Aaron Rodgers past this season. The owner tried to bench him. Then he fired his head coach. Then he fired his general manager. And if you are a general manager trying to make a splash, trying to make yourself known in New York, and if you're a head coach, the first decision you're most likely making is cutting Aaron Rodgers and letting him go. The question that needs to be answered is, will Aaron Rodgers try to pull off one more season? Or is he going to go into retirement looking like this? Looking like a Patrick Ewing in an Orlando Magic uniform. Ugh, it's gross. Because that's how Aaron Rodgers looks right now. He looks like a guy that's over the hill. Even though his numbers don't necessarily indicate that he's a guy over the hill, 17 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, he's a guy over the hill. And the Minnesota Vikings need to make a decision. Will they pursue Aaron Rodgers? Because Sam Darnold's only on a 1-year contract. The speculation has already begun whether or not teams like the Giants or the Raiders are going to pursue Sam Darnold this offseason and offer him a big contract. And what better situation for Aaron Rodgers to be in than having a Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson, bring back his buddy Aaron Jones for another year. And the Minnesota Vikings offensive line has been solid on the outside for sure this season. Christian Darrisaw will just be back next year. I'm sure they'll upgrade the inside O-line this offseason with all the money that they have to spend. So it's kind of becoming a more and more realistic idea. But here's why the Minnesota Vikings will not pursue Aaron Rodgers. There comes a time and point in every star player's career where you need to weigh the good and the bad. And you need to weigh how valuable the good really is. Aaron Rodgers, when he's in his prime, which lasted a long time, 2009, he had an 11-5 record with the Packers. In 2021, he had a 13-3 record with the Packers. So his prime lasted from like 2009 to 2021. It's like a 12, 13-year prime. Okay, I'll take the bad Aaron Rodgers. I'll take the guy that goes on a media tour with Pat McAfee every single week on ESPN. I'll take the guy that goes on darkness retreats and does weird things and has a terrible relationship with his family. I'll take a guy like that. With a little drama, who cares? He's MVP. I'll take that. But when he's 41 years old, his team stinks. The bad outweighs the good. And that's how the Minnesota Vikings are going to look at it. Sure, you got Justin Jefferson, Addison, and Hawkinson. But do you really? If you have Aaron Rodgers? Aaron Rodgers steps in the building, all of a sudden you got Devontae Adams, you got Jordy Nelson probably coming back. You've got Scantling in that wide receiver room. Because that's who Aaron Rodgers, you're probably bringing back Randall Cobb for another year. So the Minnesota Vikings wide receiver room probably looks entirely different with Aaron Rodgers. I'm kidding. Because at this point in his career, he doesn't have that pull, especially after this year with the Jets. The Vikings wouldn't change around their entire roster to fit Aaron Rodgers, who's going to be 42 next year. But I don't think I could think of a worse situation for J.J. McCarthy than to have an eye-rolling, sigh-making, pouty quarterback as QB1. I don't necessarily think it's a bad idea for the Minnesota Vikings to explore the idea of seeking another option as QB1 to start the next season. I don't think it necessarily should be handed to J.J. McCarthy week 1. I hope so. I hope that he is QB1. And if he deserves it and proves it in training camp and in OTAs and in preseason, give him the job. But exploring another possibility to compete, because at the end of the day, he had one preseason game under his belt. And, the whole plan this season was going to be, maybe the bye week. After week 5, you insert J.J. McCarthy, but Darnold was 5-0. Maybe after the Jacksonville Jaguars game, you insert J.J. McCarthy after he went 0 for 3 picks in the end zone, or in the red zone. So I don't necessarily think it's a dumb idea for the Vikings to pursue a stable veteran presence like a Sam Darnold, like bring him back on a 2-year deal, or somebody else. But it's certainly not Aaron Rodgers because of the reasons why I just listed. His talent is no longer supreme, and what he's worth is not much compared to the bad that he brings. Can he still sling it? I'm sure he can. Can he still make throws? Probably. Could he take a team like the Minnesota Vikings far in the playoffs if he's in the right situation? Probably. But what are the likely chances that he could do that? And does the bad outweigh the good now? And I think it does, and I don't even think it's a conversation. So right now, he's a Patrick Ewing in a Seattle Supersonics Orlando Magic uniform. He's a shell of his former self. And the Minnesota Vikings are not going to pursue that. 1, for the reasons why I just listed. 2, for the reasons why I just listed. And 3, for the reasons I just listed. So Aaron Rodgers and the Minnesota Vikings are not destined to be together. Even though it kind of seems like the puzzle pieces are falling together. Kevin O'Connell is not going to want that wreckage in the Minnesota Vikings locker room influencing players like J.J. McCarthy. This is not going to happen. There's another story out there posted. I saw this on the Purple Persuasion Twitter account. I also saw it on VikingsWire.usatoday.com. And it's a discussion surrounding Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase. And the question that's being answered by NFL executives, whatever, coaches, NFL personnel, is Jamar Chase a scarier wide receiver, or does he, I hate this question, but does he create more fear? Is that all? Does he make more fear in the opposing defenses than Justin Jefferson? And here's what it says. I'm sharing the screen with my YouTube watchers, and I'll read it to my podcast listeners. It says, what is arguable, it seems, is just how highly he ranks among his peers and who at the position strikes the most fear in opposing coaches. According to ESPN NFL insider Jeremy Fowler, many scouts and coaches believe Jamar Chase strikes more fear in opponents because of his big playability. He's validating that belief, which means the price tag only goes up. That line was in reference to whether or not the Cincinnati Bengals are going to be willing to give Chase a large contract in the offseason, as the Vikings did with Jefferson this previous offseason. On the surface, there's some merit to that stance, as Chase is in the running for the Triple Crown this season, leading the league in receptions, receiving yards, and touchdowns. However, when you look at it a little deeper, the claim of better big playability doesn't necessarily hold water, at least with regards to this season. Though Jefferson is trailing Chase in the counting stats, it is Jefferson and not Chase who has the edge in yards per reception, 15.5 to 14.5. Jefferson also has had the longest reception this season, 97 yards to 70, and has more big play receptions of 20-plus yards this season than Chase. Regardless of whether or not the anonymous scouts and coaches are right, Chase and Jefferson are neck and neck for the best receiver in football. And Chase is likely in line for a Jefferson-like payday this offseason, though the team could opt to have Chase play on his fifth-year option and kick the can down the road for another year. Did I mention already that? I don't think I did it. Maybe I already did. Did I read that Jamar Chase could lead the league in receptions, touchdowns, and receiving yards? So it's like the triple crown. I think I read that. That was in that article too. But you look at these two players, and that article posted by VikingsWire.com said something very specific that stands out. These players are neck and neck. Okay? Some years, Jamar Chase is going to put up better numbers than Justin Jefferson. And other years, Justin Jefferson is going to put up better numbers than Jamar Chase. For example, this season, Jamar Chase has played 11 games. He has 73 receptions for 1,056 yards. Jefferson has played in one less game because of the Minnesota Vikings bye week. He has 59 catches for 912 yards. So 14 less catches, about 1,040 less yards than Jamar Chase. Last year, Jefferson was injured, so it's not a fair comparison. But you look at 2022, Jefferson had 128 receptions for 1,809 yards. And you look at Jamar Chase, 87 receptions for 1,046 yards in 2022, and he played 12 games. So he played a few less games than Jefferson did. And you look at 2021, Jamar Chase, 81 receptions for 1,455 yards. 2021 Jefferson, 108 receptions for 1,616 yards. So you look at these players, both have talent, both have big playability, both are elite wide receivers, both are top three guys in the NFL. But I'm going back to the situation that I talked about with Aaron Rodgers earlier on in this podcast. Jamar Chase is talented. He's amazing. And, maybe the contract disputes, maybe the contract situation isn't all on him, but from the outsider's perspective, he has something to do with it. And he creates a little bit more drama than Justin Jefferson. Jefferson could have had the exact same situation last year as Jamar Chase had this year. Showed up to every game, showed up to every practice, showed up to every training camp. And didn't whine for 1 second about his contract. In fact, Jefferson even had a hamstring injury and could have been like, I'm just not quite ready to come back. He could have sold that thing for the rest of the season, and I would not have blamed him. In fact, if I was Jefferson in that situation, I probably don't come back. Team's not really in contention anymore. You're outside looking in on the playoffs. And you know what Justin Jefferson does? He comes back anyway. Comes back after missing several games due to a hamstring injury. He missed 7 games last year and came back anyways. So many players would have just dogged it. Said, I'm just not quite 100%. Let me just get this thing strong for next season so I can get my There's risk in coming back from a hamstring injury because you could re-aggravate it. Jefferson comes back anyway. He's got the better mind on his shoulders. And he's a leader in the locker room. He's captain this year, which means a lot to him. And I'm not just making that up. You read articles, you read stuff from Alec Lewis, who's an insider, and being a captain means something to Justin Jefferson. And you look at these two guys. Yeah, Jefferson had the leg up in 2021, 2022. Jamar Chase has a leg up at this year. Who cares? Okay. Sometimes Jamar Chase is going to have more yards and receptions than Jefferson. Next year, Jefferson will probably have more yards and receptions than Chase. It's hand in hand. Both these guys got talent. Chase has the better quarterback, though. Joe Burrow. You can't discount that. You got to think about that. But there's no way I'm taking Chase over Jefferson. because of reasons 1, 2, 3. He's got the better mind. He's a captain. He's a leader. And these guys are equally talented. So who am I going to take on my team? I'm going to take Jefferson, the guy that's not going to stir it up, the guy that's not going to make a problem in the Minnesota Vikings locker room. So, you think about these two guys, and of course it's going to be Jefferson. No doubt. Jefferson for sure. Thank you for making this podcast a part of your day. Hope you enjoyed it. Hit that subscribe button right there. Have a great day.